"That's my helicopter outside." The words didn't just hang in the air, they shattered it. In the soft glow of chandelier light, inside a 5-star rooftop restaurant overlooking the glittering city, a single father stood tall, his finger pointed calmly toward the dark sky beyond the glass walls. Outside, red lights blinked against the night as a sleek black helicopter hovered above the skyline. And in that instant, the powerful CEO's wife, draped in emerald silk and diamonds, went pale. Before we dive deeper into this unforgettable story of pride, pain, and redemption, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe kindness always comes back around. Ethan Cole never imagined his life would circle back to this rooftop. 5 years earlier, he had walked out of a similar building with nothing but a cardboard box in his hands and his 5-year-old daughter asleep on his shoulder. He had been a senior pilot for one of the city's largest aviation companies, loyal and hardworking. But when corporate restructuring came, loyalty meant nothing. One signature from the CEO had ended his career. That CEO was Richard Langston. Ethan had tried to explain that he was a single father, that he had no one else to help, that flying was the only thing he knew how to do. But the decision was strategic. That was the word they used. Strategic. His wife had left a year earlier, unable to handle the instability of Ethan's demanding schedule and the weight of raising a child. So when the job disappeared, everything collapsed at once. For months, Ethan drove delivery vans, worked double shifts at warehouses, and skipped meals so his daughter, Lily, could have warm food and school supplies. At night, after putting her to bed in their tiny apartment, he would sit by the window and watch helicopters cross the sky, remembering the feeling of control, of purpose, of freedom. Lily never complained. She would hug him and say she liked their adventure life. She believed her father could fix anything. One evening, when the landlord posted an eviction notice on their door, something inside Ethan shifted. He realized no one was coming to save them. No company, no former colleague, no apology. So he saved himself. He took the little severance pay he had left and enrolled in an advanced certification course, studying at night while Lily slept. He borrowed money from an old flight instructor who still believed in him. He worked until his hands cracked and his eyes burned. And slowly, doors began to open. First, it was a contract job flying private charters for medical emergencies. Then a corporate gig for a tech startup. Then international clients. Word spread about the disciplined, calm pilot who could land in impossible conditions. Within 3 years, Ethan wasn't just flying helicopters. He was investing in them. He partnered with 2 aviation engineers and launched a boutique helicopter service focused on rapid response logistics and high-end transport. They operated lean, efficient, and reliable. Clients appreciated discretion and precision. And now, at 38, Ethan Cole owned the very aircraft hovering outside the restaurant where Richard Langston was celebrating his company's anniversary. The invitation had come unexpectedly. A former colleague, now working in executive management, had reached out and insisted Ethan attend as a special guest. Ethan almost declined. He didn't need closure. But Lily, now 10, had looked at him with wise eyes and said maybe it was time people saw who he had become. So he rented a modest suit, left Lily with his neighbor, and arrived quietly. Inside the restaurant, laughter flowed like wine. Crystal glasses clinked. The skyline shimmered beneath the balcony. At the center table sat Richard Langston and his wife, Victoria, surrounded by board members and investors. Victoria had once looked at Ethan with polite indifference during company galas. To her, he had been just another uniform. When the noise outside grew louder and guests began glancing toward the windows, curiosity filled the room. The helicopter's lights reflected against the glass. Someone joked about an emergency landing. And that's when Ethan stepped forward. "That's my helicopter outside." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile smugly. He simply stated a fact. Victoria's face drained of color because she recognized him instantly. She remembered the day he had come to the office, desperate and dignified, asking for reconsideration. She remembered how quickly she had dismissed his presence, telling security to escort him out. Now he stood before her transformed, not in arrogance, but in quiet strength. Richard stared, confusion slowly turning into recognition. The room fell silent. Ethan wasn't there to humiliate anyone. He wasn't there for revenge. He had come to close a chapter. He walked closer, explaining calmly that his company had been contracted by one of their investors for a potential partnership in rapid response logistics. The helicopter outside wasn't for show. It was business. There was a ripple of realization across the room. The man they once deemed expendable now operated in a league they hadn't anticipated. Richard attempted a stiff handshake, offering congratulations in a tone that carried both pride and discomfort. Victoria struggled to maintain composure. But what shook her most wasn't Ethan's success. It was his grace. He didn't mention the eviction. He didn't mention the sleepless nights. He didn't remind them of how he had begged for his job. Instead, he spoke about resilience. About how losing something stable sometimes forces you to build something stronger. He said he was grateful for the push, even if it had come painfully. Because without it, he might never have discovered what he was capable of. The room shifted. Investors leaned in. Board members exchanged glances. The narrative had changed. Ethan stayed only long enough to confirm a meeting for the next morning. Then he stepped out onto the balcony. The wind carried the distant hum of the city below. He looked up at his helicopter, not as a symbol of wealth, but as proof that rock bottom can become runway. When he returned home that night, Lily was awake, pretending to read. She ran to him, asking how it went. Ethan knelt and told her something she would carry for the rest of her life, that success is not about proving others wrong, but about proving yourself right. A week later, his company secured a multi-million-dollar contract. Not because of revenge. Not because of drama. But because excellence speaks. Victoria Langston would later send a handwritten note, not public, not performative, expressing regret for how things had been handled years ago. She admitted she had underestimated the quiet ones. Ethan never needed the apology. But he accepted it. Because bitterness is heavy, and he had already carried enough. Today, when his helicopter crosses the skyline, it carries more than clients. It carries a story, of a father who refused to let failure define him, of a little girl who believed before the world did, and of a man who chose growth over resentment. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what strength really looks like. And before we end, I want you to comment one word below, resilient. Let's fill the comments with a reminder that no setback is final. Because sometimes, the person you underestimate is just one storm away from owning the sky.